Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Zorii Bliss, a brand new character coming to Galaxy of Heroes. Well, technically, she's been in the game as an NPC for a while now. Her art's always been there. It's always been very good. And we've always asked the question, why can't we play with this character? And now CG is finally giving us the opportunity to do that. Her kit is complex in practically how it works, and you have to read it, and there's a lot of things to try to understand what CG is doing. But at the end of the day, I think the purpose here is very clear, and we're starting to see a theme with these group of new characters that keep coming out of what they're meant to do up front and what they're really meant to do behind the scenes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into her kit. Her synergy suggestions are right at the bat: her Finn, Poe, Rose, and Resistance Trooper. I really don't see Rose being on the ultimate team. As far as specific synergy with her, she's only going to have one real item, and the rest really seems to revolve mostly around Finn and Poe being the, this is a term that we're going to use a lot, non-unaligned force user resistant tanks. We're going to have to come up with another acronym for that because I'm not saying that 16 times, and I think that's how many times it appears. Resistance Trooper in general just has really good synergy with Finn and Poe. Always has, even back before when we had the OG Finn lead. That being said, we're not going to read all of the Q&A questions. There is some interesting info here, but mostly just a lot of puns. But go ahead, getting right into her kit. She's going to deal physical damage twice to target enemy if she's stealth, which she's going to do that a lot. This attack can't be evaded and dispel all buffs on target enemy. For each buff dispelled this way, resistance allies recover 10% health. Really relevant right now. Almost all teams have a semi-consistent tank, if not semi-consistent taunting tank, if not a very consistent taunting tank like Ninth Sister whenever there's a stack of Purge Out or something of the sort. So having the dispel, this really isn't something that the Resistance had. They have minor dispels, like JTR has one that she can use on a special, Resistance Trooper as well. So having one especially that can be called to assist, or that maybe we can get Retribution on a counter to constantly be doing that, is going to be very helpful. Very similar to Embo or Nihilus, I suppose. I guess the health recovery is okay. Next up, she has a special that is going to dispel all debuffs on all Resistance allies. For each debuff dispelled, Resistance allies gain 5% turn meter. Non-aligned force user Resistance tanks for taunt for 1 turn and gain protection up for 2 turns. This is like a really long-winded way of saying that she's not meant to work with JTR. And we're going to see that multiple times because it keeps using this huge phrase of non-aligned force user resistant tanks. That's only JTR. She is the only one that falls into that really weird niche. We're going to pull this up and look at this a little bit later, but if we look up the Resistance faction, there's not that many unaligned force users to begin with. It's mostly Rey, JTR, and Scavenger Rey, and the only tank within them is JTR, but I guess I'm not confused. I'm just a little perplexed. I get why they don't want her to work with Rey. They want Rey to be her Galactic Legend team, and they want Zorii to be this great lifter, if you will, for the useless Resistance that are really just sitting on our rosters because we had to gear Rey in the first place, assuming you went after Rey. If you didn't, then this whole concept is actually really weird. Very similar, we're going to make more comparisons with this later, very similar to how Starros can be a really great character if you have Jedi Knight Luke and you already had to gear up most of those characters anyways. In a very similar way, Zorii is going to be great if you have Rey, and especially if you're a mid-game player that went for Rey as your first or second or third GL. That being said, continuing on in the kit, we're going to see a lot of callouts to the fact that she doesn't work with JTR specifically. So she gains all that, and then this ability is a little bit the reverse of Echo, or Bad Batch Echo. You come in, you rip off all the opponent's buffs, and then you gain a bunch of turn meter. She does the opposite. She dispels your own team's debuffs, and then they all gain 5% turn meter based on that, which is really nice. And it's actually one of the ways it's going to help the team keep up. Ever since they nerfed Finn's old Zeta leadership, one of the things that's been a little bit hard is to close the gaps in turn meter, and having that huge one is going to be really nice, especially for, again, all these factions out there that passively put debuffs on you without even you having to take a turn. Then she has another special, deal physical damage to target enemy. This attack deals 30% more damage for each exposed triggered, stacking max 300%. So Siege has been putting maxes on a lot of stuff, but I'm really curious if we're going to be able to get 10 exposes on someone. And if we are, I'm not sure if this damage even matters. 10 exposes is going to do a ton of damage. I guess they have a super high protection and they're at full protection. Maybe that matters, but ultimately, cool. until this ability is used. If Zorii is stealthed, again, she will be a lot. Inflict healing immunity on target enemy for 2 turns. If target enemy is exposed, stun them for 1 turn. If this defeats an enemy, expose all enemies. So it does a lot of different things, none of which within themselves are super overpowered. Damage is probably good. Healing immunity is good, especially if you get through something like Crew. And it exposes, you pop 10 on him. Doesn't really do much damage, especially if you're having continual damage going into when he's healing. The stun on him will be nice, as well as the healing immunity. Now this is where, I'm not sure if tricky is the right word, but it gets a little bit annoying. This entire like wall of text here, all it is pretty much each line or every 2 lines is going to be a call out to 1 or 2 other specific resistance characters that she's meant to synergize with. And this is kind of the route that CG has taken recently, again, with Iden, with Zorii, with Starros, instead of reworking older characters like Stormtrooper Han. They'll go in and they'll make this new character, and this new character will have some random line that really what it is, it's a buff to that older character. So that's what they're trying to do here. And I'll get to this a little bit kind of in the final thoughts. But long story short, for the end game, I don't think this is enough. The way that the GAC meta has changed, and we've seen this a lot with Starros, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, I hope I am. That's not really gonna cut it. Like, both of them are gonna come in, they're gonna do really good things, they're gonna boost the team to new heights. But if we have access to every single mega team, essentially, every single Galactic Legend, all the pseudo Galactic Legends, then I don't think this team really has a space anywhere. I think ultimately it's going to be pretty good, again, if you are a mid-game player and you have very few Galactic Legends and one of them is Rey, and she's going to help boost this team immensely. She's going to be great in that regard. But ultimately, I think what we're looking at here is this is a character that's very likely, and I could be wrong because there's examples of that, I think she's going to be required for something big. And the biggest thing that in my mind that kind of is around this time period is a Galactic Legend Leia. That doesn't entirely fit super well because she's a resistance character. And if we wanted to get a Leia, we obviously want a Rebel variation because we already have Galactic Legend Rey kind of as a resistance leader. I guess she really isn't. She's really has no resistance in her kit other than the fact that it's in it's one of her alignments. But that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and read through this. So she gains all resistance allies gain 100% potency. Again, assuming JTR is not in the leader slot nor Rey. They get 100% potency while they are more allies than enemies, and 35% potency while they have equal or fewer allies. Again, really important to what Poe used to do, or rather what Finn and Poe used to do, where they would go ahead of a team, they would drop their turn meter, they would hit them with exposes, and they would get this thing rolling. Again, it's become really, really hard to do that in the current meta because so many teams are functioning at like 400 base speed, and to be able to get ahead of them with an older team is nearly impossible. I don't even know if 35 is going to be enough to close the gap. I would think we need to be higher than that, something like 50 or 60, although I don't know if I want that. That being said, she gives that out, and the 100% potency, that's also important because that once you get rolling with everything and you kill someone, then you have a way to lock down your exposes with 100% potency. So it makes sense, especially with Finn lead. Whenever Zorii uses an ally while stealth, the ally in the leader slot and Poe, so Finn and Poe is the idea here, gain retribution for 1 turn to Poe's taunt, and he also gains critical hit immunity for 1 turn. So again, specific callouts. This one is actually by Poe's, at least by name, which makes sense. They knew each other. Whenever resistance ally has less than 100% turn meter and gains a bonus turn meter, they gain 35% offense stacking for 1 turn. That's going to happen a lot between the different resistance kits. Whenever a non-allied, whenever a I guess JTR ally removes turn meter from an enemy, they inflict speed down for 1 turn. That's called the Poe's kit. He has a special that does that. Whenever resistant ally with tenacity up gains tenacity up, all others gain it too. This is actually Rose. This is where really the one point in their kit where they're trying to force Rose, and I don't think she's going to be the best for that reason. I think probably maybe even Holdo will be better. And I know like Rose has an Omicron, but it's not good. And I don't really think this is enough to push her in there. And if it is, you're not going to be that high of a quality of a team. In my opinion, it's definitely not worth putting the Omicron on. If you want to use her because she's R5, that's fine, but yeah. Resistance allies have tenacity up. Whenever they deal damage to an enemy, they have a 35% chance to inflict expose. It's okay. I think there's enough ways to get that going already. And then when you're not JTR and they gain 50% max health, or when they taunt, they gain 15% max health for the stacking for the rest of the encounter. When the taunt expires on them, they recover 50% protection. So that's going to happen a lot with Finn and Poe bouncing back the taunt back and forth. Then while in Grand Arenas, while there are no Galactic Legends or on their side, and all allies are resistance, If the allied leader is not JTR, whenever Zorii is stealthed at the start of her turn, all enemies without expose or inflicted with expose, which that's really not that great either. Again, this team is going to have viability in some places. Omicron looks like a hard no. You're going to is stealth at the start of the turn, all enemies without expose or inflicted with expose for 1 turn. That definitely synergizes well. That's definitely good. I don't think it's going to change nearly enough matches to really justify this. If you love the character, go for it. But this is, if we're talking about competitive play, what's wise in resource management, this is a no. And don't do Rose on top of it. I don't see it beating anything of high relevance that you might not already have a team for. Zorii, and then she has this last step. Zorii gains stealth for 2 turns at the start of each encounter. We talked about that. And then this is where her kit gets a little bit awkward, because up until now it's been really forced Finn, Poe, Rose, Resistance Trooper. Like, you have to have this comp. Not even JTR. She's Resistance. No, you still can't use her. But now they're throwing in very randomly smugglers. They have 35% accuracy and health steal. Cool. Whenever an ally triggers an expose, all allies recover 5% protection. And the first time, and this is actually really good. The first time each resistance or smuggler ally falls below 100% health, they gain 100% turn meter. If that ally was a non-tank, then they gain protection up and stealth, so that's good. And if the ally was a tank, gain damage immune taunt for 1 turn. If this damage meter still is dispelled, that ally recovers 100% protection. That's actually really good. Whenever Zorii uses an ability while stealth, smuggler allies gain buffs based on the roll. So critical damage up, speed up, and then critical hit immunity, which are all really relevant. But this is only for smugglers. What this reminds me of is the almost BB-8's kit. BB-8 was entirely made for resistance, like has everything for resistance, and then he has like one throwaway line, I guess, where he was actually really going to make a huge difference for droids. And maybe that's something for the future, but right now I think they're really trying to push this. And what I can't figure out, or what I'm not 100% on, is she really going to be the next Sana Starros, where she is building, her main purpose isn't to boost Stormtrooper Han. The same way that Zori's main purpose isn't to boost OG Poe Dameron, but it's a bigger calling for a legendary or galactic legend or some character in the future. And the only reason why I'm really hesitant on this is because we currently do have a few examples in game where the character was pretty solid, but really didn't amount to anything beyond just being a solid character. Iden is really the prime example of that. Amazing character, did not need to be required for anything, but again, very much matched this profile. She came in and very specifically announced which trooper she will and will not work with. And in the same way, even a Sortie, I think we mentioned her as well. She came in, and again, she has this kind of bucket list, not bucket list, but like specific list of who she will and who she won't work with. And she's an overall an alright character. Yeah, so I don't know what Zori's final destination is going to be. Her character also is just a little bit out of pocket for what we've been doing recently. I can't remember the last time we got a Resistance character. I think our last Resistance character is Galactic Legend Rey, like, assuming we don't count Ben Solo. But yeah, I don't see really any reason to put her on. I guess you could put her on the Rey team, but there's just too many callouts saying like she's not going to really do much, and her abilities beyond like all like these specific bonuses and whatnot she gives for those specific characters, none of them really seem to be that game changing when it comes down to it. Like, there's not going to be any exposes. I guess the dispel for Rey would be nice. That would be okay. Yeah, it's just the dispel, and both for debuffs and for buffs on the enemy team. Turn meter can be okay. But yeah, I mean, this ability isn't going to really get anywhere because they don't really have any exposes. I'm sure she could be okay. I'm not sure if I would exactly wail on her or really rush her just for that purpose. But overall, those are our thoughts. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me if she's really going to blow something out of proportion, or really what character you think she might be preparing us for ultimately down the line. But until next time, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and stay awesome.